Face masks are now mandatory, as we know, in Melbourne and Mitchellshire. So is it time for Sydney to follow suit? Epidemiologist Mary-Louise Mclaws from the University of New South Wales is on the World Health Organisation's expert panel on COVID-19, and she joins us now. A very good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have your insights once again. So what do you reckon about the approach the New South Wales government should now be taking to masks?
Look, yesterday we were on a knife edge, exactly the same position that Melbourne was on about 5 weeks ago at 100. And when you reach 100, that exponential growth then takes up speed. And we've already noticed that we're now, as of the day before, increased over 80 cases, and it will continue to go on and on. The difficulty is that the cases are spread geographically. So one of the best things to do is, rather than locking down areas, because some of them are restaurants or social venues, is to actually get people to wear a mask, because there's been great studies that have been done recently that show that even without a lockdown, if even 70% wear a mask, it greatly suppresses that spread and can get the R to 1 or less.
So you reckon now is the time, given, as you say, how critical the situation is, for the New South Wales government to bring in a mandatory mask-wearing directive?
Yes, I believe that they really need to do it for the public, all public spaces, and anybody working that can't keep their social distancing at work, which is a lot of us. And if they don't do it now, I sadly see that our numbers will expand, as we've seen in Victoria, but for different reasons.
We also have this ban on no dancing, no singing, no mingling at weddings in New South Wales. So speaking a bit later in the show, Mary-Louise, to a reception venue owner who is quite cranky about this and saying that he doesn't believe or doesn't know what is going on here. What's your advice to people like him?
Well, yes, I'd say to him that I'm very sorry for his predicament, but this virus loves people being effusive, having fun, being in a small space with very little natural airflow. We know that as soon as airflow gets to about 4 kilometres an hour, and you can't have that in a wedding venue, it dissipates exhaled air really rapidly. And that doesn't happen inside a venue, particularly in winter, with everybody increasing their voice, which then pushes out more particles if there's somebody there who's in the early stages of COVID-19 that they don't realise that they're infectious or that they've ignored certain signs and symptoms. So I can understand why the authorities are not very excited about dancing. In fact, I'd be asking people, I know it sounds unusual, but I'd be asking people to wear a face shield so that they can see everybody talking, because it will amplify the spread if there's at least one person there and they have multiple contacts across families and friends.
Absolutely. We all know it takes off so wickedly quickly, this thing. Couple of quick questions before you go. Looking at the Victorian lockdown 2 weeks into it, based on your assessment of those still very high numbers, is it optimistic to expect Melburnians will be out of lockdown in the scheduled 4-week period?
Well, from my analysis, I've found that the numbers are declining, the speed at which it's spreading is declining, and that's taking quite some time. It always takes longer to decline than, of course, to speed up, always. But now that they are wearing mandatory masks and being asked to stay at home after having a test, you should see that go down, except, of course, the residential aged care cases will continue to go up regardless. But if they don't spill into the community, then they have a good chance of gaining ground again. But they did have high numbers to start before all of this happened at around, I believe, about the 18th of June was when it started to speed up. So they need to potentially wear those masks for a little longer.
Okay, and just finally, very quickly, the government are putting together those budget numbers Yesterday, we're assuming Australia's international borders with quarantine restrictions would open by January the 1st next year. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's ambitious, but if we can find like-type epidemiological patterns to open up our trading and tourist and travel bubble together, it's a fabulous idea, particularly in the region of the Pacific, Southeast Asia. We could do that with Korea, Japan, China, New Zealand. So it's a very ambitious but great idea.
We've always got to aim, dream for something, I guess, in these grim days. Mary-Louise Mclaws,
Yes.
Thank you so much again.
It's a pleasure. Take care.